Seeking refuge in video games during times of sorrow and deep shame is something I and probably many of you do. It doesn't matter how intense the sadness is, video games have always been our saviors. This is how we gamers deal with grief, and Gris beautifully portrays this experience. Without uttering a single line of dialogue, through its colors, music, puzzles, and deep metaphors, Gris taught me to grieve, how to coexist with loss deep inside me, and how to keep moving forward despite it. This game found me at the right time, and I'm sure this video has found you at the time when you need it the most too. According to Elizabeth Kubler-Ross's theory, grief consists of 5 different stages which is triggered by a loss. This loss can be a heartbreak, the death of a loved one, or anything else. In Gris, this loss is represented by the protagonist losing her voice. As she loses her voice, the colors of Gris's world fade away, turning the game into a white and grey canvas. Gris, weakened and ashamed, refuses to accept that she has lost her voice, and this is when she enters the first stage of grief, denial. I recently experienced this myself after a heartbreak. This is the phase where you don't want to accept that you've lost them. You refuse to believe that it's over, that you now have to continue your life without that person or thing or feeling in your life. Every time that a memory resurfaces or something reminds you of them, you fall, over and over again. But you have to get up and keep moving until you find that first spark. In Gris, this spark is a star that lights the path for grief to unfold and become the key to progressing through the game's stages. After a few simple puzzles, we reach the second part of the game, anger. Now the game's world is no longer just a white background. A sharp red blends with the existing white, which later in the third stage we'll discuss the significance of these color combinations. Studies have shown that red is a stimulating color that can increase blood pressure and heart rate. It has a strong connection with blood, and as you've probably felt many times, your heart beats intensely when you're angry. As you may have heard, you saw red at that moment, just like this dude here. The origin of this expression comes from the dilation of blood vessels in the eyes due to high blood pressure during anger. Another example of red as a stimulant is the way bulls react in bullfighting. No, I'm just mentioning this for context. In reality, bulls are colorblind, and they get aggressive not because of the red color, but because of the movement of the cloth. This part of the game is more intense, harsher puzzles, a more chaotic soundtrack, and an anxious atmosphere. After a beautiful skill-like descent into the depths of our emotions, only to rise back up again, the games welcome us with a stunning shot. Congratulations, you are about to experience one of the most beautiful journeys of your life. In the first section of this part, there are storms that start blowing every few seconds, which we have to take shelter inside buildings to avoid them. At this point, the game is teaching us something. We must learn to control our anger so that it doesn't completely consume us and push us backward into emptiness. After passing through the storms and reaching a temple, we unlock our first clock ability. Now that we learn to control our anger, we can use it to move forward, but not in the way this mustache guy did, I mean in a good way. This ability allows us to break rocks and obstacles by weighting down our clock. It even helps us against the anger storms. After passing through a few puzzles and breaking this rock, once again we descend more deep into our feelings. But now there is no red anymore. Everything is white and grey again. Has our anger completely disappeared? Have we failed and been sent back to the previous stage? It's unclear, but for now, let's take out our frustrations on these spots. This section of the game actually references a common anger management method, kind of like a rage room. But if we overdo it, it can have the opposite effect, just like what happens here, where breaking the pots releases blackbirds that drag us back to the surface, but they don't just stop there. Now the reds are a bit faded, showing that the rage room had some effect and calmed us down a little bit. But this piece is temporary. Just by moving forward a bit, everything turns red again. And this time, the game world is even harsher than before. Anger is like a roller coaster. It goes up and down without a pattern. Or maybe it's like Bitcoin's chart. At some point during a puzzle, we can even see this tiny creature that runs away from us because of how overwhelmed we are with rage. After activating this turbine, the platform beneath us lifts us above the clouds where we encounter another statue. This is where green is added to our canvas, leading us into the next stage, bargaining. This part of the game reminded me of the time I started seeking help from others. I talk to my friends, engage with different people on online websites, and in some situations even go to therapy. Which brings us to today's sponsor, BetterHelp. No, I'm just kidding, I don't have a sponsor. But hey, BetterHelp, if you're seeing this, hit me up. Jokes aside, you probably noticed that green is the dominant color in Better Health's icon and the other mental health platforms. And now the same color has been added to our game's canvas. Green symbolizes growth and healing, and as we just seen, the moment we entered this stage, trees started growing and turning green. This sense of safety and comfort that green conveys can come from a friend, a therapist, or someone who truly understands us, and in Gris, this little companion gives us that feeling. At first, it avoids us just like the creature from the previous stage, but when we offer it a red apple, it befriends us and helps us on our journey. In return, we reunite it with his family, because after all, we're all in this together. Speaking of the red apple, I'm sure you've noticed that red and white are still present in the game's world. And this is exactly what I wanted to discuss in this stage. Grief doesn't just end after passing through its stages. The goal isn't to get rid of it, but to learn how to live with it. Just like a wound that heals but leaves as a scar that stays with you for years. And just as Gris teaches us through its blending colors, these feelings may fade, but they never completely disappear. They stay with us until the very end. This stage is beautiful, full of stunning color combinations, unique puzzles, and soothing music. But those who have experienced grief know that this is just calm before the storm. At the end of this stage, a blackbird attacks us, a creature born from our lingering negative thoughts and our overdoing in the rage room, trying to push us down with his relentless screaming. No matter how far we've come in our grief process, there is always something, a small trigger, like a photo, an old message, or even a familiar scent that can suddenly pull us down into a recent stage. After reaching the top of the tower, the bird finally lets go for some seconds, but as we jump into the next level, it flies right beside us again, continuing to hunt us down. This time it's even angrier, the music is harsher, and the entire world turns red. But in the end, with a little strength and a clock that transforms into a heavy stone, we can push through all the tough days and challenges, and make it to the next stage, the real storm, depression. Blue, rain, and a new jumping ability for our cloak. These are the key features we get at the beginning of this stage. Blue is the color of water and the sky. It's often associated with trust, safety, and calmness. But what does it have to do with depression and sadness? Why do so many directors use blue to evoke a sense of depression? Unlike the warmer colors at the top of the color wheel, blue belongs to the cold color family. This makes it perfect for conveying isolation and sorrow. Also, during depression, people tend to lack energy and enthusiasm, which is why blue is often used to express these emotions. On the color wheel, blue is the direct opposite of orange, which symbolizes passion and excitement. And so Gris, in the most beautiful and artistic way, utilized blue, blending it with a rainy atmosphere and an incredible soundtrack to create a complete experience of depression. One thing that really stood out to me in this section was that we can barely see any traces of the previous stage's colors, at least at the start. This represents how overwhelming sadness can be, overshadowing all other emotions. It's also why so many people stay stuck here for a long time, unable to move forward. This stage requires more stars than usual and contains significantly more complex puzzles, which makes sense, given that depression tends to last longer than the other stages in reality too. Despite its difficulty, this stage has its own beauty. Feel free to take a screenshot. It's honestly amazing how without a single spoken word, the developers have managed to convey such deep emotions. So much so that at certain points I felt like I was on the verge of tears. Yeah. I guess I'm a bit emotionally sensitive. One particularly unique puzzle in this section takes place in icy caves. Every few seconds, a bright light flashes, creating an ice sculpture of our character. We then have to use these frozen reflections to manipulate platforms and solve puzzles. After collecting 2 stars, we unlock a new ability for our cloak: swimming. You've probably heard the saying, diamonds are formed under immense pressure. The depression stage, despite its weight and difficulty, grants us more abilities than any of the previous stages. At the end of the day, the harder the struggle, the greater the reward. Once we dive underwater, we finally start seeing red fishes again, and surprisingly, even some orange fish. If you remember what I said about the color orange, you realize that these fishes are a sign. They are telling us that passion is slowly returning to our canvas and we are starting to move past depression. Oh sorry, I'm just completely mesmerized by these trees in this game. As we dive deeper, we gather 6 stars, each obtained through a separate puzzle. Then a turtle appears, leading us even further into the darkest depths of our emotions. In many cultures, turtles symbolize wisdom and guidance, which is probably why it is chosen for this part of the journey. After guiding us through the darkest part of ourselves, the turtle brings us to another statue. The statue opens its eyes. Gris curls into herself and with a radiant burst of energy, she adds yellow to the canvas. Acceptance. But is it finally over? Is reaching the stage of acceptance enough? Clearly it's not. This time, Gris's dark thoughts come at her more intensely in the form of a huge eel, chasing her through the water, trying to completely swallow her. Gris dodges the eel's bites one by one, but after a few lucky escapes, she eventually gets trapped within its mouth completely, and her lights of hope start to fade. But she's not alone. After this scene ends, I stood up and clapped for 5 minutes. My mom kept nagging me that I shouldn't have stopped taking my pills, and I actually agree with her, because for this scene, I seriously wanted to go and kiss the developer's hands personally, or even more. Acceptance isn't a goal. Like the other stages, it has to be passed through. In this stage, darkness has enveloped different parts, but yellow light guides us through the heart of this darkness. Yellow is associated with the sun, which evokes the feeling of optimism and hope, as the sun symbolically drives away the darkness of the night. At the beginning of this stage, the lights are unstable, indicating that this feeling isn't strong yet. The lights are flicker, small and are not everywhere, but as you move forward, the lightning intensifies and colors gradually return to the canvas, making the experience more beautiful. I must say, the developers have masterfully combined the 5 colors of the grieving stages to create a beautiful work of art. After going a bit further, an interesting mechanic is introduced. It reverses gravity. The first time I encountered it, I was very confused, but over time, as puzzles involving reverse gravity becomes more frequent and I finally gained control over it. I think you've realized by now that I'm not talking about the mechanic, but in the end, all the difficulty of this section was worth it. Gris regains her voice. Her voice now has the power to heal flowers and even revive some platforms, which will help us later on. Finally, she reclaimed what caused her grief at the first place. But is it exactly the same? Is it more? Is it less? After collecting all the stars, it's time to complete the stage of acceptance, or more accurately, complete the grieving process. Gris, standing between the boundary of her new life and her old life, sings and spins the canvas. Falling into a new chapter of her life. But when she tries to climb the final star bridge, her dark thoughts return, but this time in a different form. This time, it's a reflection of herself. My theory is that these new dark thoughts are actually Gris's former self, trying to prevent her from changing, and they are doing exactly that. The dark thoughts devour all the colors that had been added to the canvas and leave a white background again. Deep within her thoughts, Gris finds herself on the shattered statue. The same statue that Gris destroyed with her voice at the beginning of the game. The very place where everything began. This time, with Gris singing, the statue begins to rebuild itself, and at the same time, another wave of dark thoughts try to conquer the entire canvas. Maybe in that final moment, when you think you've healed, you lose everything once again for a moment. But once you've truly experienced grief, you'll be familiar with the feeling of loss. So what do? You push the darkness aside. You stand up. And sing. Congratulations, you've completed the 5 stages of Gris.